Has it resonated with you at all?
Yes,
Yeah? You ever feel like your life is crazy, out of control, like you're trying to
Uh-huh.
balance, keep all those balloons up in the air and so forth? So, do you remember the big idea last week? You can't do
Everything.
everything, right? But you
Mhm.
can do.
The important things.
Okay, that's awesome. I needed some confirmation this morning as a pastor, and I can't tell you what that.
Glad I got it right.
I know one. I know one person actually paid attention. Like, this is amazing. I'm gonna live off this all month. So what did that look like for you? Because I kind of ended the message last week with, giving you permission
Uh-huh.
to do what? You remember that?
To say no.
Yeah, to disappoint somebody, right? Okay. So did you?
Um,
How did that play into real life somehow, some way last week?
actually, it did.
Okay.
It did.
Tell us about it.
Jesse's in a play this
Uh-huh.
weekend.
Your son,
and-
Jesse?
Yes.
Okay.
And I did not over volunteer for his
Uh-huh.
performance, which was a
Yeah.
first for me.
Yeah. Hey, give it up for
Yeah.
Mama Mary Ann right here. Yeah.
I
Maybe.
got to go to the play and actually watch the play. And
And not have to
Yeah.
do too much.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm so proud of you. That's big. That's big. So, mama power. Mamas can say no too. Did you hear that? Okay. So that's what this is about, guys. Mary Ann, thanks for letting me hang out with you some this morning, and giving us some great feedback. So that's what we're doing this morning, is continuing this series about finding rhythm, because balance just doesn't work. So I hope this is resonating with you. I hope that you're connecting. I had some great feedback this morning, just kind of out of the blue. I was talking to someone that's fairly new to Journey, and I was thanking them for parking out in the grass. By the way, thank you guys for parking out there. That was just a test to see if you actually read your email. Wow, nobody parked on the pavement this morning. So way to go. That was amazing. Everybody's parking in the grass. But that leaves a lot of room for growth, so thank you for that. And this person I was talking to said, yeah, no problem. He was happy to park out there. And then he said, I love coming here. He said, this is the highlight of my week. This is a highlight. That's a huge win. That's a huge win for us, because that's what we want. We want to have an environment, an atmosphere that you can't live without. That this is a place where you can come and get refueled, to be encouraged, because life is crazy, life is hard, and we need each other. We need community. As much as I love technology, as much as I love social media and using those as tools, nothing that the world has can give us this. We need each other. We need to be in the same room together and connecting and moving through life together, because that's how God made us. And so I just want to say thank you, because you are the ones that are creating that environment. You're the ones that are making this culture that is being developed here at Journey. It's you. It's your attitude and your spirit and your joy that's making that happen. So I'm just excited that I get to be a part of it, that I get to be here with you, and I feel the same way. My wife and I are going to be gone this week. We have an amazing opportunity. Somebody was very generous. Somebody, we don't know who it is, but somebody in the country gives a big donation to this dude ranch out in Colorado called Wind River Ranch every year, just for pastors and their wives to have a getaway. And just so happens, this is our 20th anniversary this year, back in May, and so naturally we wanted to do something big. But we probably couldn't have done something that big, had somebody that we don't even know somewhere in the country, unless they were generous to make something like this happen. So all we had to do was take care of our airfare to get to Denver and get back to Atlanta. So we're going to take this week and just invest in each other and have that time together. So be praying for my wife, because she actually loves our kids, and she she freaks out, right? Because she's Mama Bear. I'm Papa Bear, right? I'm like, they'll be fine, I trust all you guys, We got people coming every night. I think DFAX is coming one night, hang out with them. And our kids are going to be fine, right? Who needs background checks? So I'm joking, by the way, if you're new here, okay? And that's going to be, every Sunday somebody's new saying, this guy's a freak. Never coming back. So thank you for letting us do that. So we're going to find, that rhythm in our life this week. So if you need anything this week, Billy will take care of you, Lauren will take care of you, and Samantha, and our elders, so don't hesitate. Let us know how we can serve you this week. But I'll be out of touch, okay? And it's going to be awesome. So, how about this? You guys ever feel like this? I brought some balls this morning. Kind of give you another illustration, but I forget when I actually learned how to do this, but way back in the day, maybe my wife, did you teach me how to do this? You actually did. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot. Okay, I'm not starting off the marriage retreat very well so far. But yeah, my wife actually was the one who taught me how to do this, how to juggle. And so, when you start off with one thing and there's this focus in your life, it's really not that hard to juggle one ball, right? Because everything is focused on the one. I'm doing this, no hesitation. I'm not dropping anything. It's kind of enjoyable, right? I can sustain this, right? I can just keep doing this. But then we bring in a second ball, right? And then it takes a little more hand-eye coordination. And now you've got to, kind of look at both balls. You got to know where they're going, and you got to plan out where they're going to land, right? And so you start doing two balls. And I've got these spotlights right in my face too, which is making it even more challenging. But I can handle two, right? And see this right here, when you have one kid, right? Yeah. I'll be honest, I hear parents, whining and complaining about their one kid. Right? But you know what? When we had our one kid, we were there too. But when you have more, you hear that and you just kind of chuckle like, you have no idea, right? Wait till you have another one. And then they're like, oh no, we're not doing that. Yeah, I used to say that too. Right? And then you bring in another thing into your life, whether it be another project, right? Another kid. And then next thing you know, right, you're juggling. Yeah. Right. See? And then you can do like fake juggling, right? And you can look like that you get it going. And you think, man, I got this, right? And then you get good at juggling. And then you become ADD, and it's like your gift. And so then you start like bringing in tricks and stuff. Oh, and then, yeah, I did that on purpose for the sake of the illustration. But then you get good at that. And you're thinking, oh, I can take on some more. And then what happens? What happens in life with leadership? See, leadership looks for busy people. You've heard that saying? You want to get something done? What do? Find somebody busy. Right? Because somebody that's busy has learned to multitask. Sorry, that wasn't planned. I got another one. And so now, instead of 3 balls, right, they start trying to do 4, right? And I can't juggle 4. It's not possible. Anybody ever feel that way? You take on one more thing, and all of a sudden, the things that you used to be good at, you're not good at anymore. And this is one of the biggest mistakes we make in leadership is we find these high-level, task-oriented people that really get things done, and then we think that they're capable of doing more, and we forget that the very thing that got them where they are, that made them successful, was the fact that they were only doing a few things. But then you add a few more things to them, and all of a sudden they start dropping balls, and then we get on to them for their lack of performance. And we forget that we're all human. And that what we learned last week, we can't do everything, right? But you can do the important things. But that's the challenge of life, and is making those choices, because I don't want to just do a few things. I want to do a lot of things, because I feel like I'm going to miss out if I don't do that, if I don't learn how to do that, if I don't have that experience, if I can't go on that trip, if I don't take on that project. And then we have to ask ourselves that big question, why? What is it in us that has this drive that thinks that we have to do all of these things? And what is it that holds us back from from saying no? Is it guilt? Are you afraid that you're going to feel guilty if you say no? Is it fear? Maybe you're afraid of, losing a relationship. Well, I can't say no to them because who is that for you? But deep down inside of you that you really don't want to do this. Maybe you're even convinced that you're not even supposed to do this thing you're being asked to do. But guilt and fear is keeping you from saying no. Why? Why is that? And how much of our lives are directed and created by other people that we are living in fear and guilt because of? And we're letting them give direction to our life. Instead of stopping and taking the time to get with God, to get with your spouse, get with those important people in your life and clarifying what is most important. And that was your homework last week, by the way. You were supposed to take time to get away somehow, some way, and decide and write down what are the most important things in your life. And then when you do that, then you can start getting some of these other things out of the way. Now, as we continue this series, I'm going to teach you more and more about how to do that. But let me say this. My name's Trent Dollyhigh. I am often wrong. I don't know everything, and I'm still learning. We good? Okay. So we're going to do this together because I struggle with this very thing. This series is as much for me as it is for you. So we think we can squeeze it all in. We think we can juggle. But the truth is, you really can only do a few things well. You have to decide. So let's find out from God and see what He wants to teach us today from the life of Christ. So Jesus is out doing miracles. He's healing. He's full force into His ministry. And the disciples are with Him, and He's going from city to city, town to town. He's healing people. He's setting people free. He's literally, the living God in the flesh. He is the God-man. This is the Christ. This is Jesus Himself. And then here we hear this account from a true historical figure whose name was Mark, and he wrote this letter for the world to know who Christ was. And here he is in Mark chapter 1, verse 32. He says this from this man Mark. That evening after sunset, the people brought to Jesus all the sick and demon-possessed. That had to be a crazy day. All the crazy people coming to Jesus. The whole town gathered at the door. The whole town. When they heard about Christ and what He could do, they gathered at the door, and Jesus healed many who had various diseases. It doesn't say that He healed them all. It just says that He healed many who had various diseases. He also drove out many demons, but He would not let the demons speak because they knew who He was. And very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, and He left the house, and He went off to say it loud, to a solitary place. Do you have a solitary place? Is there any margin in your life where you can get up and walk away from the juggling? Where you can get up and walk away from your responsibilities? Where you can get up and you can walk away from this crazy pace of life and find a solitary place? Because that's what Jesus modeled for us. Jesus has given you permission this morning to take some time and walk away. Now, my wife and I have this agreement where we give each other permission to walk away. But the agreement is that you just have to do what? You just have to come back, right? So, we do. We have these moments in our life. And we have 6 kids. And they're wonderful, amazing. They're great kids. Not perfect by any means, but they really are great kids. And I don't want to go too far because, you can't really praise anybody too much until they're dead because they got the rest of their life to screw it up. So we won't take that too far. But they're good kids. And so there are these moments in our life where my wife will get this wild look in her eyes, right? And somebody's going to get hurt. And she just says, I'm taking my iPad or my pencil or my notebook, and I got to get away. I'm like, go, take off. And so she goes to Panera Bread, or she goes to wherever. I don't know where she goes. She just gets away in her solitary place, and she finds that rhythm. And I give her permission to do that. But I've heard stories. I've heard stories. I know this is none of you, but I've heard stories where, there's, some husbands would just freak out if their wives walked away for an hour because they can't handle the pressure of taking care of their own kids. And I say to you, you need to grow up and be a man. You know what it means to be a man? It means to let your wife leave the house and take care of the kids. And give her that solitary place and space. Because if you want to keep your wife, you want to keep her sane, you better be a man. Right? I mean, it's crazy. I hear these stories about men who can't handle their kids overnight. And I'm like, what? Now listen, if you need some help with that, come see me. And I'll come to your house. We'll work on your kids together. We'll put the fear of God in those kids together, right? I'll teach you how to grow a goatee and look intimidating. No, but there's some truth to that, right? So maybe that's for you this morning. And then men, I'll say it again. If you're working 60 or more hours a week, it's not possible to do that and take care of what's most important in your life. You only got one chance to raise your kids. You can start businesses, you can get promotions, all that stuff can still be in your future, but you got one shot at raising your kids. That's all you get. And those first 5 years are the most critical. Those are the formative years. I mean, in my opinion, I would say that by the time that they're 5 or 6 years old, you've essentially raised them. That foundation has already been built in them. Because when they get to be a teenager, they don't listen to anybody. I mean, when they drive away in that car, they can do whatever they want to do. And you just hope and pray that they remember what you taught them. You just hope and pray that they love God, and that they respect authority, and that they want to do good in life because that's what God put them here to do, right? But that's all you can do is pray for them and hope as they drive off. You can't control that. There's no control over that. But men, do you have a solitary place? Are you stopping and finding a rhythm in your life? Why is it, men, that you're afraid to say no to your boss? You're afraid you're losing your job? You're afraid you might not get the promotion? You're afraid you might not get the raise? You're afraid of... Maybe we're fearing the wrong things. Maybe we should be more afraid at losing connection with our own children. Maybe we should be more afraid of losing that chemistry with our spouse because we're giving something else too much value, too much importance. Because at the end of your career, when you retire one day, you're going to want to have that relationship with your wife. And then one day when your kids are gone, it's just going to be you and her, you and him. So for some of you, it's kind of scary, right? Because maybe right now your kids are the distraction in your relationship. Sometimes our kids become the glue of our relationship, and then when they leave the home, we're like, oh, shoot, who are you? What do we do now? So you've got to find that solitary place. And what did he do? He prayed. He got with his father. It says Simon and his companions went to look for him. And when they found him, they exclaimed, I love this. You ever heard this before? Everyone is looking for you. Isn't this what we're afraid of? We're afraid that if we step away, everything's going to fall apart. If I step away from my company, if I step away from my business, if I step away from my organization, if I step away from my team, because I have made myself way too important in this scenario, that everybody's going to go, where is he? Where is she? And that's a problem. Because you have to lead in such a way that things can still happen without you. And that's exactly what Jesus was doing. Jesus modeled this for us. What did he say to his disciples? He said, one day, I'm not going to be here. He said, one day. He said, you'll do what? He told his disciples, his team, right? He said, you're going to do greater things than me. That's what he said. He was modeling the greatest, the best leadership that the world has ever known. Jesus modeled that for us. It's right here. And so he would step away, and everybody would claim, everybody's looking for you. And Jesus replied, I love this. I love this. His response is, so let's go somewhere else. You get that? He didn't go, oh my gosh, they're looking for me? Did I disappoint somebody? Is there somebody is somebody mad at me? Is somebody, do I need to go make this right? Does anybody need to chase after and bring back into the fold? Because I'm so nervous. I'm so afraid that my company is going to, collapse if we don't get, this one customer, right? Or I'm so afraid that, if we lose this person, oh my gosh, the giving is going to go down in the church and we're just not going to make it anymore because I'm so insecure and I'm so desperate because we got to have this person. That's not what he did. He goes, so let's go somewhere else to the nearby villages so I can preach there also. How much energy do we waste in our life chasing after people who are walking away from us? Because when we do that, we cheat the people that are coming toward us. Because here's the lie. The lie is that we think we can do both. We think that we can chase after the people that are tapping into our insecurity to try to keep them, and we can take care of the people that want to be close and want to be influenced by us at the same time. You see, that's the balance that doesn't work. You can't do both, people. You have to decide. You have to decide. Now, I'm not saying you should never chase after anybody. There are moments and there are accommodations that you make in the right situation where you do at times need to chase after somebody, but you don't do it every time all the time. Jesus didn't model that at all. Listen to what he said. He says, that is why I have come. Jesus was doing this. He was focused. He was on a mission. He had clarity. And he had the backing of his Father. And he spent time with his Father. He spent time with the boss man to make sure that they were always on the same page so that he didn't have to worry about fearing people. All he had to worry about was pleasing the Father. What's more important? Pleasing people or pleasing the Father? And what did he say? He said, that is why I have come to preach the gospel, to literally be salvation for the world. He was only going to have a short season on this planet. In his humanity, Jesus accepted certain limitations, and he modeled that for us. What limitations have you yet to accept? If Jesus in his humanity accepted his limitations, that's why I call him the God-man. He's fully God, fully man. That's a whole other theological discussion for another time. We won't get into that. But he modeled for us his limitations to teach us how to live. So he traveled throughout Galilee, preaching in their synagogues and driving out demons. Here's the big idea. To find your new rhythm, you will have to accept your limits and sometimes say no. And so this morning, we're going to learn how to say no. Because I believe it's a skill that we've lost in our modern culture. We say yes to so many things. We say yes without even thinking about the yes. We say yes without even stopping to consider how much time that's going to take. And again, my wife gets on to me about this. She said, you underestimate how long it's going to take to do stuff. And I do. It's one of my struggles. Because in my head, see, I think it's just going to go like this. You know, I'll be on a tree job. You know, I do tree work on the side sometimes, and I'll look at this tree and go, okay, we got boom, 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 we get this. And I think, oh yeah, 2 hours, we'll knock this out. You know, like 4 hours later, and I'm going, gosh, man, I missed that one. Right? Because we underestimate how much time and energy it takes to do stuff. And so we think that we're not as limited as we actually are. And we take on too much. And because of fear and guilt, we're afraid to say no. Here's the thing. Did you know that a yes can be worse than a no? Have you ever said yes to somebody when you should have said no because of fear and guilt? And then what happened? You said yes, and then they clarified the project. You took on the project, and then it became another ball that you were juggling, and inevitably, something was going to get dropped. Inevitably, eventually, if you juggle enough balls, you cannot juggle them all. Something will hit the ground. And then that person comes back to you, and guess what? They're upset. Well, they should be. Why? Because you agreed to do it. You both had an agreement to do it. They're justifiably upset. They're not being wrong. It's not sin. And then how do you feel? Oh, that's guilt on a whole nother level now, because now you agreed to it when you shouldn't have, and now you've dropped the ball, and now they're holding you accountable, and depending on how they handle that, you may get defensive and then bite back at them. Why? Because when somebody feels guilty and they feel pressured, what happens? It's called fight or flight, right? There's these survival instincts that God has put inside of us, and you're either going to come back and you're going to fight, or you're going to run away. That's what we do. How is that better than just saying no to begin with? How many times have we signed up for something, right? And then the ball got dropped, we disappointed the leader, we let the mission down, all because of fear and guilt, and we said yes when we should have said no. So I want you to feel this tension, okay? That yes doesn't fix things. Yes doesn't make things better. Yes doesn't actually help the person who's asking you for help, does it? Because if you should say no, your yes could be worse than your no. But we don't stop to think about that because we're going too fast, because our life is out of balance, because balance doesn't work. And so I'm going to teach you how to say no. Is there a way to say no and protect your relationships? Is there a way to say no and not lose every opportunity? Is there a way to say no and feel good about it? Yes, there is. There's a story of a partner in a company. He felt driven to pursue, CEO position of this organization. Nothing wrong with healthy ambition as long as your motives are good, right? And this was a good-willed man, and he wanted to help people. He wanted to see the company grow because he believed in the company, he believed in the product, he believed in the mission, and he wanted to be CEO. But he believed this lie that in order to get there, he had to do what? He had to do everything. He had to take on every project. He had to please everybody, right? And he had to perform at an extremely high level, and he felt like he had to sustain it long enough to where people would value him more and value him enough where they would go, oh, it's a no-brainer. That's our guy. He needs to be our next CEO. Does this sound familiar? We got kids right now in high school thinking that they have to do 100 different things so that their resume, their paper looks good for the university so that they'll be accepted. It's ludicrous. We've got children who are busier than some adults that I know, who are stressed out. I mean, literally stressed out. It's affecting their health. This generation is predicted to be less healthy than you and me. This generation is predicted to live a shorter life than us. That's the culture we have created. And it's not sustainable. You can't do everything. And you sure as heck can't do everything well. You have to choose. You have to decide. We are not helping our kids, telling them that they need to be well balanced. No, it's much better to look at your child and say, look, as your parent or as a coach, these are the top qualities that I see in you. And these are the things that I think you're going to excel at. And if you'll focus on these qualities that God has given you and focus on a couple of these areas where these qualities will excel in the real world, then their chances of success go way up. But we're afraid, see, fear and guilt. Because if there's not enough stuff on my paper to give to this next step in my life, they won't accept me. True story. So this guy pursuing CEO, he literally works himself to death. He says yes to every project. He says yes to every person in the company. And all of a sudden, his performance begins to do what? It begins to degrade, because that's what happens when you choose balance, when you try to do everything. And he actually becomes less valuable to the company. And the people in the company begin to see that. And they begin to have conversations behind closed doors because, John's just not getting it done anymore. And he seems so distracted. So they have no idea how much he loves the company. They have no idea of the why of what he's doing. All they're seeing is that his performance is going down. And so finally he's thinking he's going to have to resign. Because resigning is better than getting fired, right? Saving face. And so finally he goes to see a trusted friend. And he goes to see his trusted friend, and he gets with his trusted friend, and his friend looks at him and says, look, you're going to have to make some major changes in your life and how you're pursuing this. If you could do anything you want to do, if you could write your own job description, John, what would it be? And he said, well, I would love to just be a consultant. And I would love to just focus on this. And he goes, then that's what you've got to do. He said, but what if I get fired? He said, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're guaranteed to get fired. So if you want different results, do something different. And he goes, okay. He says, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to go back to the company, and I just want you to do the things that are most important to you and that you think will best propel the success and set the company up for success. But don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody what you're doing. Just be prepared to start saying no. And so he does. He goes back to the company, and he focuses on doing these kinds of things that he would have done if he had resigned, doing consulting work. And people begin to come to him and say, hey, would you take on this project? And he tells them, no, I really need to focus on this. And it was the first time I'd ever heard John say no. They didn't quite know how to take it, and they stepped back. And the next project comes along and goes, no, I really think this is the thing I got to focus on. Say no. And all of a sudden, the company begins to see this shift, this change in John. And John begins to feel this newfound respect. See, let me tell you a little secret. People respect you when you say no. See, the thing that you're so afraid of, it's not real. People will respect you more if you say no for the right reasons. Why? Because the no says that you're secure, that you're not afraid of disappointing people. That's a sign of great leadership. That's a sign of strength. It can show more strength and make you more attractive to say no than it is to say yes. Because anybody can say yes because everybody's afraid and everybody doesn't want to feel guilty. It takes somebody strong and secure to say no, and that's more valuable. You see that? And guess what happened? As that began to happen, the company began to track up and to the right, and he became more valuable to the company. And he ended that year doing less by saying no more with the biggest bonus he had ever had in the company. True story. Recent story. So let's talk about the power of a positive no. And I get some of this. I did some research, and this comes from a guy named William Ury, and he outlines these things. The first thing is this: accommodation. We say yes when we want to say no, and this happens when we value the relationship of the person making the request above the importance of our own interest. See, here's what happens. You value the relationship over your own interest. And it's not that the relationship isn't important, but what is it that you and God and your family have agreed that you guys think is most important. If it doesn't line up with this person who you consider a friend, shouldn't you value what you and God have set for you to accomplish in this season of your life over what they think you should accomplish? But here's the problem. If you don't have the clarity of what you and God and your family think are the top interests and the most important things in your life are, then you're not set up to have the freedom to say no. Because you don't have the clarity in your life to define what you can say yes and no to, because you don't know what you're doing anyway. There's no clarity, there's no focus, there's no mission, there's no purpose in your life. You're just going through the motions. And so you're fair game to be everybody's workhorse, because you'll say yes to anything because you don't know where you're going. That's on you. You got to get to a solitary place and figure that out. Second thing is this: attack, right? Remember the fight or flight? We say no poorly. See, it's not just enough to say no. You need to learn how to say no. So we say no poorly. We say this. This is a result of valuing your interest overly and above the importance of the relationship. And so out of that fear, you bite back. You say, I can't believe you asked me to do that. What are you thinking? You make them feel guilty. Then everybody loses. And then there's avoidance. Here's the flight part. Remember the fight and flight? The other thing is you ignore them. They send you an email, and you never answer it. They send you a text, and it says read, and you never respond. Right? Because you don't know how to say no. And then here's the affirmation. Here's a formula called yes, no, yes. Let me give you an example of how you can give a positive no. Save the relationship, maintain your integrity, and stay focused on the mission God has given you to accomplish, whether for life or for that season or for that company, whatever it is. For example, if somebody asked me for a speaking engagement, if I were going to say no to that, I would say, I love, let's say it's FCA, because I speak at FCAs occasionally around the county. Hey, Trent, we want you to speak at FCA, on Monday morning at this time. And if I need to say no to that, here's what I would say. I love FCA. Man, I believe in the mission of FCA, and I would love to come speak at FCA. But my schedule's not going to allow me to do that this time. Right? I said yes to what they think is important. And I do. I love FCA. But then I said no in the middle. You see that? I said, but my schedule is not going to allow me to do that at this time. But my schedule will open up in a couple of months, and I would love for you to ask me again. You see that? Yes, no, and yes. Now, how did that feel? It was okay, wasn't it? Did that feel bad? You see that? You say yes, and then you say no, and then you end it with a yes. Or if you know that you never want to do this ever again, right? And this is never going to be something you don't want them to ask you again, you can handle that too, right? You can simply say yes. Yes, I see that this is very important to you, and it should be, and I support that. But I really have to focus on this. And I hope that you find somebody to fill that need for you. You see that? You said yes, and you said no, and you said yes. But you didn't leave the door open to be asked again. But it wasn't offensive, right? You see that? I think we just need to learn that skill of yes, no, yes. See, what would happen if you started saying no sometimes when you really know you should and got rid of fear and guilt? Billy, as you guys come back up and as we respond, how would it change your rhythm? How much margin would be created in your life and your schedule this week and this month if you learn how to say no in a positive way? Yes, no, yes. What are the things that are most important in your life? Because some of you, I know, right? You still haven't cleared it up. You still got to go back and clarify what's most important so you know what to say yes to and you know what to say no to. Because until you figure out what are the top 3 or 4 or 5 things in your life, then you're not even going to be set up with the clarity to know what to say yes and no to. You got to figure that out. And what are you saying yes to that you need to say no to right now in your life? Some of you have already taken on too much. Some of you are working more than 60 hours a week. Something's got to change. Somebody's already losing in your life. Is it your kids? Are your kids the ones that are being cheated? Is it your spouse that's being cheated? And one of the things I learned this week is that, if you are involved in your organization or lead an organization where you do most of it through technology or one of these, right? And this is me. That personally, I'm probably working way more hours than I realize because it's always happening right here. And I think that I'm not working as much as I am, but the truth is my wife called me out on it this week. I actually am. I got to make some changes in my life. Just this morning, Coach Merck got hit by a car out running. Now, I don't know what happened or why, but can I be honest? There's been close calls in my life because I've been distracted in my car. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it. And then it really hits home when you realize that could have been your daughter. That could have been your kid. That could have been my kid this morning. I think it's time to slow down. I think it's time to find a solitary place and you and God redefine what your life is really supposed to look like, what this season is really supposed to look like. You got to learn to say no. So what is it that's holding you back? And then for some of you, this goes much deeper. Some of you are saying, you've been saying no to God. Some of you are still thinking that just doing your thing and being a good person is enough. And that's not what Jesus came to preach. That's not what he taught. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. There is no hope. There is no peace. There is no love and acceptance outside of me. This world will give you seemingly everything and leave you with nothing. Jesus Christ really is the hope and the peace and the love and acceptance that you're looking for. So for you, you need to stop saying no to God, and you need to say yes to the Savior, Jesus Christ, who came to give you a rhythm that is sustainable. Jesus walked away from people all the time. He didn't heal every single person, but he gave the world an opportunity to receive him and receive healing for eternity. And you may not get the physical healing that you want in this life, but there's more to this life than this life. And your healing may not come until the next. So put your hope and your faith and your yes in Jesus Christ and him alone. Let's respond.
You hear me when I call. You are my morning song. Though darkness fills the night, it cannot hide the light. Whom shall I fear? You crush the enemy underneath my feet. No trouble